as marketers, we've always looked at the need component and then making sure that that's been communicated. And largely 10, 15 years ago, there was pretty much an immediate handoff to sales because the whole process of gathering information, evaluating the options, the buyer decisioning, and the purchasing was largely held within the sales function, especially in B2B sales, and the sales function was the controller of when and how all that information got out to the buyer. But what's happening, and we've experienced this, it's not like it happened overnight, but it certainly has increasingly been the case over the last 5 and especially the last couple years, is where marketing's role is much broader and spans, more of that sales cycle. Thus, the reason we're leveraging tools like Marketo from a technology standpoint underneath everything. But when buyers come, they're not immediately going to sales. They're going to their computing devices, whether that's their tablets, their phones, their computers at work, and they're gathering and they're self-evaluating, and there's so much information. Thus, our reason to be doing more of the nurturing along the way. And even a large part of the buying decision these days can largely be done in the buyer's mind even before they talk to sales. Sales absolutely is critical in this part, and marketing and sales increasingly have to work even closer together because marketing is trying to span a broader part of that marketing to sales function. But the reality of it is marketers, and we all feel this, is that we are needing and we have to span a broader part of that engagement and that communication set from the start of the buying cycle all the way through to the end. And I know this part of it will not come as a surprise to anybody, but it's always good to think about how that buyer's journey has changed as we think about web personalization. So in this one area that we're going to talk about today, it really feels like this when you think of your website. Every month, every day, you may have thousands or tens of thousands of people visiting your website, and it feels like this, right? You just have a whole bunch of anonymous people, and you hope at some point, and you put a lot of work into it to help convert some of those people so they become, named leads in your system that you can then go do more personalized marketing to. The reality of it is all those anonymous visitors, underneath it all, on the bottom of this slide, are people, right? They're real people that have all these needs and desires and specificity about them. But we can still make some broader generalizations, and the top bar is the persona. And many of you have done persona work, and you know the types of buyers, even though you don't know them by first name and last name. And so where web personalization really fits in is it's really the combination of identifying a person's attributes at a fairly specific level, but again, not necessarily a first name, last name, but we know their intent and their behavior and their profile. And in today's world with solutions like Marketo, we can collect and understand a whole bunch of firmographic information about them. And we add that to their experience that they're going to get when they come to the website. And the beauty of web personalization within Marketo's context is now we can push more of the things that we do in Marketo from a nurturing perspective and a segmentation perspective when we know somebody first and last name, and we're able to push that earlier in the engagement cycle but still do it in a really intelligent way. So what we can do is we can segment our inbound prospects. In most cases, as that big stadium view showed, they are still anonymous people, but in real time we can start to segment and present data according to the organization. This ties largely into the concepts you've been hearing around account-based marketing. By industry, we can do it by what we know in the marketing automation system. And then location is another one, and also the final one is around what they've done digitally already on your web property, and in some cases what they haven't done also determines what you'll show. And we have a real example from Dana's situation at Aetna that we'll show you towards the end of the webinar. So that is conceptually, what web personalization is. the motivations for this, you know, the why would we do this? What's the business reason? Well, one of the big ones is at that very top of that funnel when you have thousands and thousands of people, even if you're a really good marketer and we deploy and run a system like Marketo as best practice as possible, you're still losing a lot of people that don't convert even on really high conversion point pages and landing pages. And so the more we can push that experience up to the top of the funnel for conversion, it's going to help optimize it. It will accelerate our nurturing. We're able to take nurturing concepts and bring them earlier into the process. And it does tie into account-based marketing because in so much as we know their industry, their vertical, other things, we can even do named accounts on the web personalization side, so we can show very specific information if we know they're on an account-based list. So those are some of the typical motivations for why we would do this. And then just really quick, and I know your eye is going to run and read this ahead of me, but I'm just going to point out one or two of these bullets. I've explained the identification of web visitors. That's definitely one of the key elements of web personalization. The other ones down towards the bottom of the bulleted list is around getting the right content and doing some predictive content recommendations. And there's actually a webinar tomorrow that's being hosted by Marketo that's going to go deep into content and predictive content elements of the platform. So we're not going to cover that today, but we'll make sure the final slide is the reference to that webinar. So if you're interested, you can go into that area in a lot more detail. At the end of the day, when we do all this, it's still the same goal. We want to engage prospects early and often and make sure that we're doing everything we can to convert them so we can continue that lead to sales process and get the right people in front of sales and then help sales close more business for you. So that part of it doesn't change. With that in mind, right before I hand it off to Dana to really get into a use case with all sorts of details, the 5 top use cases that we've seen so far is the ones you see here on your screen. So the first one, location, is absolutely easy and quick to do in web personalization, and you're going to see elements of that with Dana's example. Events are a great situation here where you might be doing say a road show around the United States, and you've got different events, say in Austin and San Francisco and New York. You're able to present very specific content on your website just to people in those locations, and otherwise, if they're not in those couple cities, you have a default or a standard set of content and imagery you might use. So that's one that most people can get their head around, but interestingly enough, we see so few people do that, and a lot of it is you just didn't have the right tool set, and you're going to see Marketo Web Personalization really is the most straightforward tool I've seen to be able to do this effectively and quickly. The other areas we talked about was account-based marketing. We can actually have named accounts in and present information according to what set of accounts they're in, or all the way down to a very specific company if they come to your web site. And then behavior is the last one. We can show content if somebody has already visited the website or if they're 2 or 3 or 4 clicks in. So very specific user-based behavior, and we can determine when and where we want to present content. So those are some top use cases. So with that, what I'm going to do is, Dana, I'm going to have you come on the line. Why don't you just give me a quick audio check so I know we can hear you okay, and then I'm going to let you take it away and talk about the successes you've had at Aetna.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. You're good to go, Dana. I'll move the slides for you.
Appreciate it. So my name is Dana Cutter. I work on the Accountable Care Solutions team at Aetna that specializes in marketing health insurance products that we franchise locally with health systems, so medical groups, hospital groups, so forth. And part of our challenge under the Affordable Care Act was really how do we bring these solutions directly to employers when for the last 50 years a lot of our products were sold through third parties. So with that came an opportunity to really look at how could we do this in a digital way that creates engaging content that is authentic and personalized to each of those local markets that we serve. And the way we approach that is through a combination of account-based marketing and web personalization. So on the web personalization side, we really needed a platform that could support not just personalization through email, but personalization through the microsites that we're creating to promote these relationships. But we also needed a tool that was smart enough to have a default setting on a national level. So when people entered our site that weren't in one of our franchise markets, they were able to navigate and learn about our products and ultimately learn about our partnerships as well at a national level. So the way we attacked this was through geographic personalization. So when you're logging in from Houston, when you're logging in from Northern Virginia, you see the relationship that we want you to see. You see the products that we want you to see. We see the pricing that we want you to see for that specific market. And then underneath that, also be able to support our distribution partners. While our goal is ultimately to market direct to employers, we still have very important third-party relationships that we have to work with and support in that local market as well. So we needed a system that could help us with our distribution partners as well. Our next layer was behavioral personalization, looking at the corporate graphics, looking at their activity on our website as they're going through the marketing funnel. How does our content dynamically change to showcase products and services based off of where they're at in the buying process? And with that came the creation of acquisition playbooks and nurturing playbooks that help us really understand the personas that we were talking to, understand the buying stages, understanding our content needs at each of those buying stages, which really fits nicely into account-based marketing. Now, I'll confess that 3 years ago when we started down this journey, we didn't use that term account-based marketing, but it really does fit well. Health insurance companies aren't early adopters of this type of technology. We knew that we weren't going to get a large budget to create a really dynamic content syndication program with support for blogs, support for publishing on demand. But what we did know is that we had a great data sciences unit at Aetna that would help us create a targeted list of accounts that would live underneath this web presentation layer and allow us to dynamically engage them, not just through email, but as they're visiting our site, as they're consuming our content, as we were partnering with our advertising partners. So being able to connect our database to our advertising partners, so as they were logging into their LinkedIn accounts, logging into their Facebook accounts, as they were shopping for insurance products online, we had a way to engage just those that audience that we defined within our Marketo database. So the statistical modeling was something that we were already good at. Building up that digital experience with our advertising partner took a great deal of time to get to. But creating that promoting responsive, personalized, multi-channel campaigns is an experience that we really needed to get good at if we were going to win on a local level. And what we always say is all healthcare is local. So if we don't create that local experience, if we don't showcase that franchise relationship, if we don't remove the black box of what is health insurance and how it and what is it going to cost, then we weren't going to win. But the results were pretty phenomenal. As we were going through our acquisition campaigns, going from 10% to our nurturing campaigns going to a 37% open rates, seeing a 3x increase in revenue versus accounts not receiving this campaign. And visitors spending upwards of 3 to 6 minutes with our content versus 30 to 90 seconds prior to our real-time personalization. So if you jump to the next slide. Perfect. So a big part of that account-based marketing side is our ability to make sure the little bit of money I have for promoting our products and services to employers is really going after people that are targeted in our database. So how we manage programmatic and display through Ogilvy, how we manage account-based marketing through Xaxis and Dun & Bradstreet, how we do our retargeting campaigns, our lookalike campaigns to build off of the database that we've created. really helps us be tremendously effective, and our ROIs on these campaigns are phenomenal, anywhere from a 35x return on investment to significantly higher. But also looking at our own media, how we do our email prospecting campaigns, how we do our email nurturing programs, how we align that to the buying cycles, and ultimately aligning that to the real-time personalization through our microsites in Marketo. So as they're going through our funnel, that experience is being replicated when they visit our microsites. And ultimately, when do we use direct mail? We only use direct mail towards the middle of the funnel, when we identify people that are actively shopping for insurance and targeting only employers that have scores of 3 to 100 in our system, and getting and seeing 10 to 15% response rates where that URL on that direct mail is being opened on their computer, versus the traditional approach where you buy a list and you build it off of persona modeling, you build it off of predictive modeling, and you hope that you see a 1% open rate and 1% of that audience going to our site. So what we found is that account-based marketing and real-time personalization really helps us make other channels more effective than ever before, more cost-efficient than ever before. And then also our earned audiences. We have to look at a whole integrated channel approach. We can't rely on email alone to reach our audiences. So we need to make sure that we have partners that could link our database to their database, so when they're logged into their LinkedIn account, our ads are appearing as they're logging into those accounts. When they're logged into their Facebook account, our ads are appearing as they fit within those accounts. And what we're finding is it's a much more effective way throughout the year to engage our audiences where they're currently living, where they're currently engaged when they're online, as opposed to just kind of general programmatic display ads that are targeted through data overlays, like the Google Display Network. Drive a lot of great anonymous traffic in the kind of that traditional approach, but what we found is they weren't moving through the funnel. They weren't becoming known. They weren't engaged with our content. They weren't buying. So platforms like Marketo really allow us to connect those dots better with our advertising and make our advertising dollars more efficient. So next slide. So another key component of the Marketo platform is its recommendation engine. And this can be programmed based off of where they're at in the funnel, and it can be artificial intelligence that helps drive how you push that content. As we scaled our programs the last 3 years, this is an area where we really can accelerate and shorten sales cycles by making sure content is getting moved above the fold, making our microsites more dynamic, making sure that we're putting relative content to that individual at that local market based off of where Marketo sees them in the life cycle. So when they're known anonymous, we can make sure that we have that general education content up front. If you could click again. And if they're known, we can start putting testimonial videos from our members and case studies from our members that help showcase what's different about our products. And if you go to the next slide. And if they're engaged, with our products and have a score of 3 to 50 versus 51 to 100, we can start making sure the content changes based off of where they're at in the life cycle. And then the final one. And the nice part about this system is it works both for anonymous and known. Anonymous audiences are being ranked by this system. They are getting scored in the system, so we have the ability to push content in front of them based off of where they're at in the life cycle, but they haven't made themselves known to us with their name, contact, and phone number. But what we also can do is, as they're navigating through the site, we can change the content relevant to where they're at in the decision-making cycle based off of how we set up our site. And the way we set up all of our campaigns is a learn, compare, purchase. We want to make sure that we have general education content on our homepage of our microsites, followed by comparative content on our compare page, and then ultimately driving them to a purchase decision and having all the tools they need to make that purchase decision on the final page. And what we found, this is a nice kind of dynamic funnel approach versus kind of that singular landing page approach that we traditionally do as marketers that are really make it difficult for the consumer to kind of move through the cycle, and really doesn't showcase your ability with a platform like this to engage them based off of where they're at in the decision-making cycle. But every step of the way, we have the ability to shuffle the deck, so to speak, and allow our visitors, as they're returning to the site, see a different experience, get featured different content, so they know that this isn't kind of a static site, one-size-fits-all site. Something unique is happening just for them in their marketplace. Next slide. So what we've seen is this is our third year in this program. It's a lot of lessons learned, a lot of steps that we took to be successful from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. But what we're consistently seeing is a 3x lift in membership and revenue in markets. So our test versus controls are showing that we can increase revenue for our sales teams by a factor of 3, as high as 11x return on investment lift in revenue and sales in those markets. When we look at our overall cost, technology investment, creative services, advertising costs, we're seeing a 20x return on ROI over those 3 years as well. And we're averaging about $34 million in annual revenue each year that we launch these programs. Next slide.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Dana. I'm going to jump in here before we move on to the next section. We've actually had a few questions come in. I think it'd be a great time to take one of them. Dana, James asks, our team is about to start a new web personalization program. What one key lesson have you learned that you'd share with a team like us who are at the beginning of the process?
Sure. I get that question quite a bit, and what I always say is you don't want to boil the ocean. There's a lot that you can do with a platform like this. Conceptually, it's really difficult to get your head around it. So, participating in webcasts like this and seeing how others have applied it at the Marketo conference will go a long way. For us, we started off with geography. All healthcare is local. We were building these unique relationships with health systems market by market. We knew that we needed to promote those relationships successfully, not just to showcase our commitment to them and the investment they were making with us to really improve the quality of healthcare that's being provided at that local level, but also for the employers who, prior to the Affordable Care Act, they really didn't have the ability to shop for health insurance. And we needed to create a unique shopping experience that really set us apart from our competition. So we started off with geography. The following year, we moved into corporate graphics and behaviors. And this year, we're really focused on the behavior levels and on really using the content recommendation tools that we can program, and then also the artificial intelligence tools that can help us see what they're consuming and promote ultimately people like you also look at content like this. So don't boil the ocean. Don't try to do it all at once. Select a few markets that really showcase what your success can be, and do your test versus control at a minimum.
That's excellent. Thank you, Dana. I think now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Andrew, and let's go ahead and look at web personalization in action.
All right. Well, thank you, Dana. That's great lessons learned, and I think everybody on the phone, as you were talking about your program and everything that you've done, far and above just web personalization, which I think is great that you're putting your web personalization activities in the context of your overall campaign and your overall efforts throughout the last couple of years. And I think that's the way to think about this. This is one area that can fit nicely into activities that you're already doing. And we're going to show you how that works. So let's take Dana's example now. And what I just pulled up is a website here where we, meaning Elixiter and Aetna, can test different segments that he set up. And so if you take the example that Dana talked about, one of the primary ways they started, and he started small, was by geography. So what you're going to see here are all the different regions and segments that Aetna is using, and each one of these regions and the healthcare network that they're working with here locally, each has a different version. And I'll show you how web personalization is dynamically changing these pages. So if we look at one of the first ones, let's pick San Antonio. And here Aetna is working with Baptist Health and Health Texas Medical. So let's pick this. We're going to set that segment, and let's launch the microsite. And let's see if we have it. Okay, here it is. I'm just going to give a pause for a moment because I know on the webcast it can take a moment for the pages to render for everybody. What you're seeing here is a full screen view of what Dana had a screen capture of before, and what you can see here is they've got some areas, and in the web personalization world, one of the concepts is an in-context area. And so what Aetna has, and as I show you the next couple examples, you're going to see certain areas of this page changing. One is in the upper right where Aetna's logo is. As I show you the next couple examples, you're going to see that might be co-branded with another logo up there. The imagery is going to be specific to each one of the geographies. And a lot of people don't consciously realize it, but they'll notice that, hey, that's my city, or that's a landmark within the city, and it really, they may not consciously think about it, but subconsciously it's really helps with identification of the message on the page. And then some things that are really obvious, right? Like the message right here, it's a great day in San Antonio, absolutely identifying with where they are. And then further down the page, there's content here in the middle and towards the bottom as well that's all changing dynamically according to the segment. So keep this page in mind, and I'm going to come back now, and we're going to choose another segment. So let me clear, and we're going to show another web personalization segment. So I'm going to pick and go down the list, and let's go ahead and try Austin. So I'm going to try Austin. I'm going to go ahead and launch this page. And now here what we can see, and I think it was Seton Health, and I might have chosen the wrong one, but what we have here now is we've got Aetna and we've got a co-branded situation here. We can see the location, and we can see that we've got the co-branding material down here in the copy. So you've got a minimum of 3 in-context areas that are dynamically changing according to the location. So I think conceptually everybody can get their head around this, but again, if you think of your experience and the marketing that you've done, what makes this a really powerful situation is you're able to do this dynamic content. They don't know me yet by name. They don't know that it's Andrew Hull on this page and that I happen to be in the San Diego area, but it's still a very personalized message, and I know I'm getting the right information at the right time. Now, one of the things Dana mentioned, which takes us even a step up, is this is more of the anonymous situation, right? We're able to have specific content according to a region, and Marketo is dynamically on the fly changing the content. But we can also do the same thing if we know that you're in a certain area or a certain part of the lead life cycle or the sales to marketing life cycle. So now let's take a look at the example where you are known to us. And for many of you that have done lead life cycles, this is where the power of integrating or being basically a seamless part of the Marketo system really pays off, because if you set up your lead life cycle and you know where your leads are, from anonymous, in Aetna's case known, engaged, on down through the sales cycle, let's go ahead and pick somebody who's in the engaged. Set this. Launch this, and you're going to see now a different experience, because now you can see the top video coming up, because we know you're in a deeper part of the sales cycle, and this video is going to be more appropriate to where you're at in your evaluation process. So what I've just presented to you are 3 on the surface very thoughtful, planned out experiences for people. And they really are simple in the sense of how it gets done in Marketo. So I'm going to show you how this gets done conceptually in Marketo. And then some of the other choices. What we've shown you is the in-context situation with imagery and logos and text. We have a slide out with the video, and there's a couple other choices with how you can mix and match these within Marketo. So let me just pull up one slide really quick, because we're going to go ahead and just show you a couple elements here before I switch back to Marketo product. So in this case, there's a couple different things in Marketo that are helpful. So you're going to see this in a real situation in a moment, but there's areas of the web personalization tool around organization, named accounts that you can identify, content analytics, recommendations, but there's a couple elements of the example I just showed you from Aetna that really go on two of these concepts inside of Marketo. One is a segment, and one is the campaigns. So let me forward right here to segments. So segments is a collection of visitors that meet a specified criteria. So in Dana's example, we can see one of the key criteria for his different segments are geography, right? San Diego, San Antonio, all the different markets that Aetna is reaching out to. That's, in his case, a segment, but a segment could also be your industry. If you sell by industry, it might be your financial vertical. It could be your university or higher ed vertical. So it won't take you too long to think about those top segments that mean a lot in your specific world. Those get defined in Marketo, and for those of you that are familiar with Marketo, think of segments. The best analogy I can think of for segments is they're like your smart lists, right? They can have one or many criteria in there that are defining down who is going to receive the message or the campaign. So that's the next screen here, and I'll let this come up on everybody's screen. The campaign is the action. It's the flow step for those that are deeper into the Marketo platform. It's the what you want to do. Now, what's really simple about what Marketo has done is they have three choices that pretty much cover 99% of the situations, which is, do you want a dialog box to come up? That's the situation right here. That can be in the middle of the screen. You can control how big it is, where it comes up in the screen. That's a dialog campaign. You can have an in zone, which is replacing a certain area of content on the website, and Dana has extensively used this where he has multiple in-zone areas that are changing according to the segment. And then you can also have a widget, which is that slide out, and that can again be controlled where on the page you want it. And Dana's using that extensively as well, especially as leads get deeper into their sales cycle, making sure the right type of video is shown at the right time. So that's the two big concepts, is campaigns and segments. So now if I come back to the product, when you come into Marketo, many of you are familiar with this interface and you got your tiles. When you purchase or you have real-time or web personalization active, keep in mind those are synonymous terms. Real-time personalization is the same thing as web personalization, just two different names Marketo has given it. Web personalization being the current naming structure if you reach out to Marketo or talk with somebody. But when you click on real-time personalization, you're going to come to a screen like this. Now this is a production sandbox instance, and I just have it on today, so you're not going to see a lot of content here. But what is really important here is you really just have to do two things to do what Dana said. Do that first step just to have a control set and have one other thing you want to test. And so I'm going to click on segments. And what I have is one very simple segment, which is Montana visitors. And for those of you that know Elixiter, we run and operate out of Montana. And so I'm just going to use this as a really simple example so we don't get caught up in the use case, but just simply the fundamentals of how this is mechanically done for you. And what I'm going to do is edit this segment, and you can see this is very easy. I can say, hey, I want to look and activate a campaign when somebody is in the United States and they're coming in from the state of Montana. But what's really nice about what Marketo has done here is you can do this also to your known leads. So the example that Dana had was from the lead database. He's looking at people that are in a certain stage of the buying cycle. It could also be a certain score. So all the data that you have sitting in your Marketo database is actionable for you when you know the lead as a known lead, for example. So very powerful set of information that's available to you. The other one is behavioral. And what you can see here, it's in kind of the lower right corner of your screen, is we can take action according to how many times you visited the site. Maybe your second, third return to the site, we want to present different information to you. We can also do it according to search terms. If somebody searches on a certain set of terms as they're coming into the website, we may want to present them with different information. So you can see all the different choices you can have. And then in the ABM world, you can also do this according to organization, group, different industries, and so you can get a long ways down on the account-based marketing concept here. And all you're doing is you're just dragging and dropping. You do your different filters, and you can do the ands or the ors. So very similar for those of you that have been doing smart lists, and that's why I use that as an analogy. It's really the same concept. It's very easy. And once you set your segment, now you say, well, when do I want to trigger the campaign against that segment? So let me come back here. Oops, sorry, let me review here. We're going to come back to the actual campaigns. And I've created one just called Montana Visitors, but this is what you saw when I pulled down all of Dana's different geographies and all that list. This is his list of web campaigns is what you saw on that list. But I'll go ahead and edit the Montana Visitors one, and now you're going to see these couple choices. Do you want a widget? Do you want an in-zone? Do you want a dialogue? And what's really nice about this is you do have a WYSIWYG editor. You can certainly switch into HTML mode if you have more sophisticated folks building whatever that slide out is going to be or the in-zone content. But very straightforward here. I just have a really straightforward copy-based call to action. And what I'm going to do is say, hey, I want to activate it on the Elixiter website. You can have one or many domains, and then you can also choose which domains these are going to activate or not. So for those of you that have many web properties, you can be running this on many branded domain web properties as well. But what I'm going to do is just go ahead and preview this so I can see if I were to activate this in a live scenario. If you came to the Elixiter homepage and you were in the state of Montana, you would get this slide out that says learn how to triple lead flow and achieve a 42% attendance rate for a webinar. Very simple, very straightforward example. This could get built, in a matter of an hour by the time you set it up, tested it, and run it, and activate it, and start to see results. So very simple example, and I appreciate, too, the fact that we can show Dana's example where he's tested it, he's built it out, he's had things running, he's collected phenomenal amount of results on it. So he's the more sophisticated case doing multiple in-zone content pieces. So he's a little bit further down the path, but we also want to make sure you understand that, to his point, you can start in a very easy, straightforward fashion and still get a lot of value out of this piece, adding into your existing investment in the Marketo platform. So Laura, I think with that, that's the demo part, and I wanted to make sure we kept it straightforward. So I think we've got time for questions. I know we want to probably wrap in the next few minutes, but if there's a few key ones that came through, why don't you shoot them out to either Dana or myself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. Yes, we do have a few questions that'd be great to cover. Dana, this first one is for you. What's the most important takeaway you've learned from implementing all this personalization at such a large scale?
Looking back at the last 3 years, starting this process with sales, making sure that, this is an industry that was getting flipped on its head with the passage of the Affordable Care Act. There's some, we had an opportunity to kind of show a different path towards selling and show how we could work with both our third-party partners and also work and sell direct. So partnering with them at the beginning was definitely key, and keeping them as a key partner for the last 3 years to build up that and showcase what the opportunity was. That was the biggest lesson. Without it, we would not have been successful. These leads would have gone nowhere without changing the hearts and minds of those individuals.
Definitely. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Andrew, I do have one for you. We are a small marketing team. Is web personalization something that we can implement?
The answer is yes, and I definitely hopefully picked a very straightforward example there that you can do very effective but not really sophisticated things with web personalization and really get the bang for your buck with the solution. So it doesn't require big sets of teams. But it certainly, if you start there and your marketing team grows and your company's growing quickly, you can do much more sophisticated things like what Dana's doing. And so it's nice to know you have a platform that can take the use cases and get you going and not be too complicated and have too much overhead to run and manage it, but also know that you've got that runway room as you want to do really sophisticated things that it's going to grow with you over time as well. So yes, you can absolutely do it, and Marketo approaches this from a kind of a number of interactions on the website. So there's some ability to also make the investment appropriate to the types of traffic and situation you're dealing with your specific web property as well.
I think what I would add to that too is my team is just 3 people, and it's been 3 people for 3 years. I think what will help you as a small team is not just the scale of what you implement in that first year, but take a templative approach to how you do it. So as you have success, it's easy to kind of clone and repeat. This platform works really well for that, allowing you to clone and then make those adjustments for that new market, make that adjustments for those industries, make those adjustments for the partnerships that you have at local level. So that templative approach has really allowed us to scale and look like a much larger team than we are.
Excellent. Thank you both. We are coming up on the end of our time here. Before we go, though, we wanted to share with you tomorrow, Mike Pelham, VP of Product Marketing for Marketo, and David Meyer, Senior Product Manager for Marketo, will be presenting a webinar on predictive content that Andrew had mentioned earlier. So if you want to continue diving into all that web personalization can offer you, consider checking this event out as well. And with that, I want to thank you, Dana and Andrew, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you have any other questions, the contact information will pop up here on your screen in just a moment. And on behalf of Elixiter and Aetna, we'd like to say thanks again and have a great rest of your day.